Have you ever noticed something strange? The person who seems to care the least in a relationship often ends up having the most power. The one who takes hours to reply. The one who can walk away without looking back. The one who never seems emotionally affected. Meanwhile, the person who loves the most, cares the most, and gives the most often ends up suffering the most. Why does this happen? Is it unfair? Or is there something deeper happening inside our minds? Today, we're going to explore a powerful psychological concept known as the silent cutoff method. A method that can help you regain control of your emotions, protect your peace, and rebuild your self-respect. But before we begin, I want you to ask yourself one question. How much of your happiness depends on someone else's attention? Take a moment and think about it, because your answer may change everything. Not every emotional attachment is love. Sometimes what we call love is actually dependency. Sometimes it's emotional addiction. And sometimes it's something psychologists refer to as trauma bonding. Imagine someone who constantly sends mixed signals. One day they make you feel special. The next day they ignore you completely. One day they tell you how important you are. The next day they disappear without explanation. And somehow, the more they pull away, the more attached you become. Why? Because your brain is no longer responding to love. It's responding to a cycle of reward and punishment. Every time they give you attention, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical associated with pleasure, motivation, and addiction. And every time they withdraw that attention, your stress hormones rise. You feel anxious, restless, uncertain. Then suddenly they come back, and the relief feels incredible. Not because the relationship is healthy, but because your brain is receiving another dopamine reward. You don't miss the person, you miss the feeling. And that's where many people get trapped. Now let's talk about one of the most fascinating ideas in relationship psychology. It's called the principle of least interest, and it says something very simple. In any relationship, the person who is least afraid of losing the relationship often holds the most power. Think about that. When you're constantly checking your phone, waiting for a reply, wondering what they're thinking, you're emotionally investing more and more energy. And the more energy you invest, the more power you give away. Without realizing it, you're communicating something. You're saying, "My happiness depends on you." And that's a dangerous place to be. Because whenever your happiness depends entirely on another person, your peace becomes fragile, your confidence becomes fragile, and your emotional freedom disappears. Most people think power comes from speaking, from explaining, from defending themselves, from getting the last word. But psychology often shows us the opposite. Silence can be far more powerful than words. Why? Because silence creates uncertainty. When you argue with someone, they know exactly how you feel. When you beg for attention, they know exactly how much power they have over you. But when you become silent, they don't know. And uncertainty creates discomfort. Your silence forces them to sit alone with their own thoughts, their own actions, their own insecurities, their own fears. Suddenly, there's no emotional reaction to feed on, no drama, no explanation, no chase, and that changes everything. Here's a simple practice that can transform your emotional life. The next time someone hurts you, don't react immediately. Wait 24 hours. No text, no phone call, no emotional paragraph, nothing. Just 24 hours. At first, it will feel impossible. Your mind will tell you to explain yourself, to defend yourself, to make them understand. But pause, breathe, wait. Because emotions are temporary, and emotional decisions often create permanent consequences. The strongest response is not always action. Sometimes the strongest response is patience. Now, here's something important. When toxic people lose access to your emotions, they often try to regain control, and they usually do it in predictable ways. The first trap is called breadcrumbing, a random message, a simple "hey," a funny meme, an old photo, just enough attention to keep you emotionally attached. The second trap is the false apology. You'll hear things like, "I'm sorry if you felt hurt." Notice the wording. They're not taking responsibility, they're avoiding responsibility. The third trap is jealousy. Suddenly they're posting pictures with someone new. Suddenly they're acting happier than ever. Not because they're happy, but because they want a reaction. And if you react, they know they still have influence over you. One of the hardest parts of the silent cutoff method happens during the first few days. You feel uncomfortable, restless, anxious. You constantly want to check your phone, and that's completely normal, because your brain is going through withdrawal. The same way an addicted person craves another hit, your brain craves another emotional reward. Another text, another message, another sign that they care. But if you stay consistent, something incredible happens. Your brain begins to heal. The anxiety slowly decreases. The obsession begins to fade. And for the first time in a long time, you start feeling like yourself again. Sometimes you can't completely remove someone from your life. Maybe they're a coworker. Maybe they're family. Maybe circumstances force you to interact. This is where the gray rock method becomes powerful. The idea is simple. Become emotionally neutral, calm, boring, predictable. No emotional reactions, no unnecessary explanations, no drama. When they try to provoke you, respond briefly. Okay, understood, maybe. That's it. Because your energy is valuable, and not everyone deserves access to it. Now we arrive at the most important part of this entire conversation. The purpose of silence is not to make someone miss you. It's not revenge. It's not manipulation. And it's not about winning. The purpose of silence is to find yourself again, to reconnect with the version of yourself that existed before the anxiety, before the overthinking, before the constant need for validation, the version of yourself that knew your worth. Because the truth is simple. Someone who cannot give you basic respect does not deserve unlimited access to your heart. You can love someone deeply and still walk away. You can miss someone and still choose yourself. You can care and still create boundaries. That's not weakness. That's self-respect. One day you'll wake up and realize something extraordinary. The person who once controlled your emotions no longer has that power. Not because they changed, not because they apologized, not because they came back, but because you changed. You became stronger, you became calmer, you became wiser, and most importantly, you became free. So tonight, before you sleep, remember this. Your peace is precious. Protect it. Your self-respect is priceless. Honor it. And never forget, the loudest response isn't always words. Sometimes the loudest response is silence. Take care of yourself and choose your peace.